As you can see, it's a lot of methodology, but in the end, it's a roadmap. You have your roadmap and your steps and your process. So once you know that, you just need to practice, find your own steps and how you're comfortable working towards the goal, which is to have a structured exposé and being able to talk about pretty much anything in French. That's something we're very used to do in France because we learned how to do that at school from a young age. So we have years of practice. You only have a limited amount of time to get to that point, but you also have your own opinions already about things. So use that knowledge that you have, use these ideas that you have in your native language and learn how to express them in French. And then once you have the methodology and the vocabulary to talk about it, it's very structured. So follow these steps and nothing can go wrong. You'll feel ready when you come up on the day of the exam. If you show at the exam that you're a very structured person and that you can express your ideas clearly, you will score higher points than if you just blab on about anything, not connected to the question. I would say it's about 1/3 of the grade is to show that you understand the problem and that you are able to give a structured answer to it. So that's a very important thing to focus on, and it will lower your stress level because you know you have that structure you can rely on the day of the test. If the topic isn't familiar to you, well, come back to that structure, brainstorm anything you know, anything connected to that topic, use that knowledge, organize it, and present it clearly, and your examiner will be more favorable to what you're saying or what you're writing. And that's extra points there that you can get. All right, so here's a little bit of strategy to create a good outline. So first you need to identify the theme and the problematic, so the question, the main question that you're going to talk about. Then you need to brainstorm. So write down everything you know about the topic, all the keywords, some examples. And then you could do a table or a mind map to kind of organize all those ideas, find some sub ideas that will be your paragraphs. So when you're brainstorming, don't be afraid to write down personal examples or things that happen in your home country. It's interesting to put in perspective everything you've learned about the French culture in your French classes and what's going on in your own country. And last thing you can do is sort out the information. You could do a chart with 3 columns if you have 3 arguments, 3 paragraphs, or a mind map, and that will help structuring your exposé. So once you've organized your ideas into a table or a mind map, the last thing you need to do is to check that it's balanced or reorganize it a little bit. If one is very short and one is very long, then you might want to modify some things. And you also need to think about the links, the logical progression of your exposé. So that's where you're going to think about the connecteur logique, the linking words of the cause, consequence, position, all that kind of things that you want to have very clearly in your outline. Once your outline looks good, you can write the key points of the introduction and the conclusion, making sure your conclusion answers to the question you asked in the introduction. In this video, I'm going to use one of my podcast episodes as an example. I'll show you how I did to come up with that problematic, the arguments, and then the conclusion, the answer to that question. So it's a mix of type D, the chronological outline, and type A, the theatrical outline. And the topic, the main topic of the episode was the environment, the subtopic energy, and the question was comment produire toute l'énergie nécessaire pour alimenter les activités humaines au XXIe siècle. So how can we produce all the energy we need to power all the human activities in the 21st century? So first, my first part was about facts, description, how it was before, up to the 21st century, basically. And then I moved on to the second part, which is the heart of the problem, the challenge, the now, the situation now, what's the problem now, with the positive and negatives of different options I'm gonna talk about. And the last, which will be the resolution, but it's the future, so it's not really a resolution, it's more possible solutions, looking forward, what could happen, what's gonna happen, what I wish could happen, because that's where you're going to really express your opinion, your own point of view from your analysis you did in part 1 and part 2, what you think could be a solution. And then finally, we'll have so after doing all my 3 parts, I will come back to writing the introduction and the conclusion. So these are all the sources I used for this episode. In some tests, you will be given a short text, a document that will contain the topic and the question, or that will contain the topic and you will have to come up with a question from that source document. So make sure you present the document in your introduction. Say what kind of document it is, the title, quickly sum up its main points, and where it came from. So first step was the brainstorming. So I put down on a paper all my ideas. Remember the questions that will help you to find ideas. If you're blocked, if you don't know what to say, think about who, what, how, why, how much, where, advantages, disadvantages, and try also to think outside the box. So outside the main model of what the majority of people think. Maybe you can be creative and come up with your own ideas, or maybe things you read that are not in the mainstream. Write down also personal examples. For example, in terms of energy, France has a very developed nuclear power. So that's something that I wanted to talk about. I also live in Canada, so I know a lot about the production of energy in Canada and all the issues that they raise. So I want to make sure to include those examples in my expose or my essay, because then it showcases that I can use my knowledge in French to talk about something in French. So here's some vocabulary I wrote down about when I think about energy. I think about energy sources, fossil fuels, renewable energy, other types of energies or concepts linked to sources of energy. And then I write down more detailed ideas, plus and minuses about each main category. And then conflicts that can arise around energy. For me, that was quite of an important thing to say, so I wanted to make sure I included conflicts, and that shows something to show the complexity of the topic of energy. And in my opinion, conflicts can arise when different states and countries have conflicting interests. So that's something to take into consideration when we talk about energy. The impact on the economy. Our economy is based on all the activities powered by energy. So if we don't have any more energy, the economy collapses. So that's something very important I wanted to talk about. And the environment. Right now, the main issues linked to energy are the impact on the environment. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in my expose or my essay. So that's the first step. I put everything on a piece of paper. I tried to find links between some words and categories, but I haven't organized anything yet. That's the next step. Next step, I come back to my topic, my subtopic, my question, and my 3 parts that I want to have. So I want facts, heart of the problem, challenge, and solutions. And I have an idea about what I want as a conclusion from everything I brainstormed. I know what directions I want to come to in my conclusion. So then my next step is to organize my thoughts. So as you see, I have color-coded categories, 1, 2, 3. So I come back to my big brainstorming map. and I write down the 1, 2, 3. So I know that the blue ones will go in the first part, the second one, the pink ones will go in the second part, and the green ones will go in the third part. So I do the same with my examples. And when I have that, I'm pretty much ready to write down my outline, which is what I did. Introduction. I always keep the question in mind, because you want to make sure that everything you say is connected to that question and takes you a step closer to answering that question and justifying your answer to that question. And you can see I highlighted the connecting words. Tout d'abord, par conséquent, there are my logical connections. Tout d'abord is, okay, that's the first thing I'm going to talk about. Par conséquent is, okay, this first thing I talked about has consequences that we're going to see in the second part. Then third part is another, à partir de ce constat, is, okay, from what I said in number 2, here's what I think, selon moi, here's what I think in the third part. And then my conclusion, always repeat the main question. So the examiner, the person reading, knows, okay, that's what we were focused upon today. Then reprise du plan is where you kind of quickly summarize your main arguments of each part and answer your problematic, your main question. And at the end, if you want, it's optional, but it's always good to include that, you've got an opening question. So from what I said today, from my conclusion to this question, it raises another problem that we'll have to think about, but that's for another time, not for now. All right, I hope that this helped. You can listen to the full episode I showed you the outline for on Spotify, on my blog, and also on YouTube. If you like the video, if you think that's some useful advice, please share it, use it with your students if you're a teacher, follow me on social media, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. À bientôt!